Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, owners didn't want to give me what I deserved. Now they are about to lose a $3 million contract because I resigned. Manager forces me to get a doctor's note despite it being illegal to do so. Doctor writes him the most passive-aggressive note, signing me off for 2 weeks instead of 2 days to teach him a lesson. Stop resetting my password. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Owners didn't want to give me what I deserved. Now they are about to lose a $3 million contract because I resigned. I am a young project manager for an unlimited commercial GC. I picked up a hammer for the first time 6 years ago, no prior experience. I was raised believing if you work hard and apply yourself, you will be successful. For 2 years, I learned everything that I could in the construction industry. Took my work home with me and studied on my own time to better myself. For that, I was promoted to foreman. I was brought in to take over a small project at a 12-building 120-unit condo complex. It started small, and the board of directors for the HOA told me they loved my professionalism, work ethic, and ability to complete projects on time and under budget. We won a big contract because of that small project. That was 3 years ago. I have since taken over the job of foreman, superintendent, and project manager. I do the billing, meetings with engineers and board members, scheduling, takeoff, material ordering. I even train the subs on application of new products because we didn't have enough mid-management. The project just passed $2.7 million. We got a bid request for another $3 million job in the same complex. All the while the board of directors telling me how appreciative they are and how they've gone through 5 different contractors in the years before committing to my company because of my management and quality of work. This boosted my confidence, and I went to the owners asking for the raise they promised me 1 year ago for my production. They told me the experience you're gaining is far more valuable. I said, you're right. I put my resume on public, got contacted by a headhunter, just accepted an offer this week for $80,000 a year salary, full benefits, 28 days PTO including holidays, in the office now, no more working from the field, full in my own truck, laptop, Wi-Fi in my truck for on-the-go billing when I visit the out-of-state projects, $80 per DM, 100% matching 401k for the first 3 years of my employment, quarterly bonus programs. The company I'm with now only pays me $40k, and that's at none of the above listed benefits. The final nail in the coffin was when the owners bragged about how much my project made in a company meeting and then denied me a Christmas bonus. I laid this offer on their desk Friday and watched their jaws hit the floor. I told the HOA board president of the project I'm running about my resignation when they couldn't match the offer. His eyes got big and requested a meeting with the owners and expressed serious concern about moving forward with the new project without my involvement. They don't have anyone to replace me, and I'm not gonna lie, it feels good to hurt their pockets when I gave them everything I had for 6 years and only asked for the median project manager salary. Manager forces me to get a doctor's note despite it being illegal to do so. Doctor writes him the most passive-aggressive note, signing me off for 2 weeks instead of 2 days to teach him a lesson. When I was in my early 20s, I worked at a supermarket. I should note that I was a pretty reliable employee. I was never late. In fact, I often got in early, and I rarely called in sick. At the time this happened, I had not called in sick for 9 months, and even then, the manager had sent me home. I had been up all night, swinging between burning hot and freezing cold, so I was obviously feverish, and I had been throwing up at both ends, shall we say. At one point at about 2 a.m. I was on the toilet, with my head in the sink, utterly miserable. I must have passed out because the next thing I knew I was lifting my head off the sink and it was 7 a.m. I was due to start work at 12 that day, but that obviously wasn't going to happen. So I called up the manager. Let's call the manager Steve. Steve was known for being a real a-hole. He never believed anyone who called in sick except his best buds, usually other managers, never lowly staff, but often called in sick himself. A lot of the time we knew it was because he was hungover and not actually sick. The conversation went as follows. Me, hey Steve, sorry, I can't come in. I'm sick. Steve, with what? Me, I don't know. I think it might be the flu. I've been up all night being sick, and I have a fever. Steve, don't be stupid. If you had the flu, you'd be completely knocked out. I need you in. Come in or you're fired. Me, I can't. I just told you I can't stop vomiting. I passed out. Steve, growling angrily, either come in or bring a doctor's note, or you're fired. In the UK, you are legally allowed to self-certify for 5 days. This means you can tell your employer you are sick and you do not need a doctor's note. If you're sick for more than 5 days, you then need a note. It is also illegal to demand a doctor's note during the self-certify period. I knew this, but I was terrified. This was during the recession. I couldn't afford to lose my job. So I got myself dressed. Almost passed out trying to do so. Then trudged to the doctor's some 25 minutes walk away. I end up sitting in the doctor's office for a little over an hour, which for walk-in was pretty good. I get in to see the doctor and she is furious at me for coming in. You're not supposed to come to the doctor's when you have a cold or flu, and of course I knew I should be able to self-certify. She told me as such, saying I shouldn't be here and should have stayed at home. I then explained what had happened with Steve and how he had threatened to fire me over this, and I couldn't afford to lose my job. I was struggling as it was. My doctor turned her anger towards my manager. She asked if I got sick pay from the company, and I said yes. He wants a sick note, does he? The doctor says. Okay. I'll give him a sick note. Now, my manager just wanted a note confirming I was sick, but instead my doctor wrote something along the lines of this. My name has come to the surgery because manager name has insisted she come in spite of the fact that this is illegal and all employees are allowed to self-certify. Due to being forced to make this unnecessary and highly dangerous trip when the patient is ill, has a fever of 39 degrees Celsius, and almost passed out in the waiting room, I am signing my name off for 2 full weeks to recover. Had my name been allowed to self-certify as is the law, they might only have needed a few days, but due to straining themselves, they now require 2 full weeks. They are not to be permitted to work until, date 2 weeks later. The doctor said she would have signed me off longer, but this was the longest she could do without requiring further evidence. So basically, instead of just being off for a few days, I was now signed off for a full 2 weeks, and I'd be paid for it. I went to my place of work, at which point one of the duty managers saw me and asked me what the heck I was doing here. Go home. I was obviously very unwell. I explained what happened. They agreed to help me downstairs to Steve's office and went with me inside. I handed Steve the note. He looked worried and tried to say I wasn't being serious about firing you. Well, gee, when you angrily growled it down the phone, it sure sounded like it. The duty manager then declared that they were going to drive me home. It was clear Steve wanted to argue but had the sense to know he shouldn't. The duty manager then drove me home, made sure I was okay, then went back to work where they informed our union rep of what had happened. Steve had a disciplinary hearing where he was given a severe reprimand and a warning. Steve tried to argue he never said I'd be fired and I was lying and just decided to go to the doctors, but the duty manager said they heard him admit to it when he said to me that he really didn't mean it. I felt better after a few days, and enjoyed my 2 weeks off, fully paid, and enjoyed the nice weather we had. Meanwhile, Steve was forced to work overtime because we were short-staffed. So thanks to the doctor, instead of being off for a few days, I ended up getting a nice 2-week paid vacation, and Steve was given a final warning, all because he insisted I get a doctor's note. Edit: to clarify the whole "you're not supposed to come in when you are ill." I should have been more specific. The rule is you're not supposed to come in when you have a cold or flu. The reason is there's nothing a doctor can really do except recommend you take over-the-counter cold and flu meds. So it is recommended that you do not come in if you have a cold or flu and instead take meds at home or pick some up at the pharmacy instead of risking infecting those waiting in the surgery. Even then, it's not a hardcore rule, more a common courtesy asked of people. If you really want to, you absolutely can. Stop resetting my password. I'm in a senior role at a service desk, and like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come in that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who is a vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks the world revolves around them, so they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on until there is like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters, etc., with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset and you can't use a password you used before, and this was a big change considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty good, and even the VP. Now this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With that new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them, and you can guess who brought this change in. So the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password, and like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now in the 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get 1 to 5 other tickets come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket like we are told to do, and we were counting the number of times we reset the VP password because we knew this was going to come back on us. So lo and behold, in the span of about an hour, we reset their password 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, "I just got an email from the VP and they say you keep resetting their password." My manager is a good guy, and I remind him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, "Stop resetting my password." In the email it says they had to change their password 12 times and they are running out of passwords they can think of and to stop resetting their password. I reply all to the email and say, due to a new policy of tickets where we have to action each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times. No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president that says, "We have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this to not be the best use of your time, so we are going to ask you recant this policy." Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.